Hey guys, today we're going to take our knowledge of variables one step further and we're going to talk about independent variables and dependent variables, how to distinguish between the two. So just hang in there and let's start with defining a few vocab words. With me today I have functions, independent variables, and dependent variables. So let's start with talking about what is a function. A function is something in math that has an input and an output. So a lot of times we will see this as a table, which is what we're going to work with a lot. We're viewing it as a table of inputs, and then in the next column are the outputs. These can be graphed. So functions, you can also visually look at the shape of them with a graph. But all I want you to know right now for the beginning of talking about functions is that you need an input and an output. So let's say, if I'm buying one shirt, that's my input. The output is going to be the shirt costs $10. If I'm buying two shirts, that's my input. The output's going to be, that's going to cost $20. So there's always an exchange happening, and the two values, the input and the output, have some sort of relationship happening between them. Next on my list is independent variable. What you need to know is that this variable is strong, independent, nothing affects it, it stands on its own, and nothing in particular needs to happen for this variable to exist. This variable, it's independent, it stands alone. Now, the third word on my list is dependent variable, which is the opposite of our independent variable. So right now, most of you are probably dependent on your parents to provide you a home, so shelter, food, they send you to school. You are very dependent on them to provide for you. In math, a dependent variable depends on the independent variable to happen. So the independent variable needs to happen. Something has to happen that is going to affect this dependent variable. The dependent variable can change. Let me give you an example just so you can see what an independent variable looks like and a dependent variable looks like. Let me go back to my t-shirt example. So I'm selling t-shirts for $10 a shirt. The amount of shirts I sell is going to be my independent variable. So I'm just going to keep selling shirts. It doesn't really depend on anything. I can sell the shirts. It doesn't really matter what price they are. I can still sell them. But I have the price of the shirts. Now, the price of my shirts, that depends on something. That cost really depends on something. It depends on how many I sell. Remember, if I only sold one shirt, that's $10. But if I sold two shirts, that's $20. So the price of the shirt is the dependent variable because it's depending on how many shirts I sell. And the amount of shirts I sell is going to be the independent variable. One more example for you to think about is it's a rainy day right now. And it's springtime, it's rainy, it's gonna rain, okay? The rain is going to be my independent variable. It's gonna rain today, it's raining. Now, what depends on that could be your flowers growing. So the amount of rain that it rains each day in one column of a table, and the height of a plant that you're keeping track of that's growing during the springtime. This height of the plant could depend on how much it's been raining. Maybe that plant is a really thirsty plant and needs a lot of water, or maybe that plant needs more sunlight. So you might notice in your table that the more rain you have, the less your plant grows because it needs that sunlight. Or if that plant really likes the water, you might see that the more rain you have, the more the plant grows. So that plant growth is dependent upon how much it's raining. Before you go further into functions and understanding functions with two different variables, it's really important that you can distinguish between an independent variable and a dependent variable. So I encourage you to go ahead and practice some problems that require you to distinguish between the two. See ya!